it looks like we might be drawing Steel in July. We know more about the adventures MCDM plans to release in the coming months. We got details on the Beastheart class, there will be more Djordice, the third-party vampire class got funded, and the Dice Society interviewed James. This and more. I'm John Denor, and this is Goblin Points. Right at the end of the month, Matt drops a bombshell over in the backer kit, revealing the covers for the Heroes and Monsters book. They look fantastic, by the way. Then he goes on to announce that the final PDFs are being released to internal testers in June, and that they're targeting July 17th as the final release. Mark that down. If everything goes to plan, July 17th is the date for the release of the finished Draw Steel core rules in PDF form. The next milestone is the physical release. MCDM estimates shipping should start in August or September. To make that happen, though, something like 16 companies have to coordinate and don't delay anything. Fingers crossed. Then, the last part of the release is the Ajax edition. Because of how much goes into that version, it'll start shipping after the normal hardcover books. I've heard that they want that to happen before the end of the year, but it's a really complex weave of companies that will have to work in lockstep to make that happen, so don't be surprised if a delay should happen. I want to emphasize, though, that everyone gets the PDFs at the same time. It's only the physical products is shipping that's staggered. Some Eagle-Eyed community members noticed that Heroes is marked Book 1 and Monsters is marked Book 2. The third book of the core rules will be the Encounters book. This is a directory resource with lots of useful, pre-made content to drop into a session. This is when you just need something to drop in front of the heroes when you prepared to zig and the heroes zagged. The content in Encounters is supposed to be specific to make it easy to use in any situation. To borrow an example from Matt, the montage test section of the Encounters might include a swamp with its unique challenges. It's not a set of generic challenges that might be useful when setting up a montage test for navigating through a dangerous area like a desert, swamp, jungle, or tundra. No. By making it a specific swamp with its unique set of challenges, you don't really have to do any prep to use it. As the director, you only need the heroes to show up at the swamp and then just use the montage tests, more or less as is. The same goes for the NPCs in the book. There are specific NPCs with given names, predetermined motivations and pitfalls, and yeah, you might want to change the name or swap out one of the motivations, but the rest of it, use it as is. That's most of the work done for you. Drop in, no prep. This philosophy also applies to Delves, the small 3-room dungeons. It'll be maps with monsters and potential secrets, specific dungeons, but they fit in almost anywhere. And same goes for the last section of the book, the combat puzzles. These are puzzles the heroes need to solve to win a combat encounter. It's not a include a trigger to step on to release the trap kind of advice. We've already got that. That's the Monsters book. This is a specific puzzle you can look up 1 minute before combat starts and just drop into the combat. Regarding a potential release window, MCDM has said they expect it to happen in 2026. We already know MCDM is working on 2 starting adventures, the Delian Tomb, for groups of players who are completely fresh to Draw Steel and want a guided introduction to the game, and The Fall of Blackbottom, which is a more explosive start, where the players are expected to already know how draw steal works. The release date for these are still uncertain. The Delian Tomb is in testing with patrons, and there has been an expressed wish that it be ready for the release of the core rules, but time will tell if it releases with the core rules or soon after. The Fall of Blackbottom will release after the Delian Tomb. The Delian Tomb is laying the groundwork for how draw steal adventures are written and laid out, so Fall of Blackbottom will naturally have to delay until those things are ready. In addition, they're working on the Conventure, currently known as The Road to Broadhurst. This adventure is designed to be modular, where the director can add or remove sections of the adventure to make it fit in 1, 2, 3, or 4 hours of playtime. This adventure comes with pre-gens for the players because it's assumed that the director knows how to play, but the players do not. The Road to Broadhurst is actually available to test for patrons at the time this episode drops. If you end up playing the adventure, make sure to fill out the survey before the 16th of June. A bit further out, there's a couple of shorter adventures. These are pretty linear and doesn't include enough victories to level up. If I were to call them something, I'd call them side quests. There are 2 adventures being worked on, the tentatively named Woad Rage, where the heroes are being chased through a woad by gnolls and have to stop them, and The Dark Heart of the Wood, where they head into a forest to hunt down a thorn dragon. For longer adventures, there's 2 in the works. In The Condemned, you play as anti-heroes that are sent on a suicide mission. You're fighting hordes of war dogs as you make your way onto Ajax's Chrysopolis to rescue someone, and then try to make your way out again. This is basically Suicide Squad, but draw steal. The last one is a major adventure that spans multiple levels and features an epic story, and it's called Crack the Sun. It's so extensive that it has the potential to become its own box set. It's currently slated to be included in the next planned crowdfunder at the end of the year. The first adventures being worked on are mostly low level, seeing as most groups are just starting out. But after having a nice selection of low level adventures, MCDM wants to start work on adventures where the heroes start at higher levels. Way back in February, we got an update on the Summoner, and this month, we got some more details on the Beastheart. The designer of the Draw Steal Beastheart detailed how the class currently works. Remember that there might be changes after it's gone through more testing. The Beastheart is the monster companion class in Draw Steal. You play as a hero who has a monster companion by your side. Your companion isn't some tame dog or domesticated animal. No. It's a wild beast. While you work closely together as a team, the wild nature of the beast always lurks under the surface. The Draw Steal version of the Beastheart is in large part based on the D&D 5th edition version. That version was already very Draw Steal-like. The companion builds a ferocity, which you can then spend on ferocious attacks. But if it builds up too much ferocity, its wild nature takes hold and the companion goes berserk. This is kept for the Draw Steal version. The Beastheart's heroic resource is ferocity, which builds up and makes the monster companion rampage if the ferocity goes too high. The Beastheart has to spend ferocity to calm their companion down again. They both act on the same turn when in combat, but they share their action and maneuver, so if one of them uses the action, then the other has to use the maneuver. They've added new maneuvers for the Beastheart specifically that do damage to deliver on the fantasy of attacking in unison with your companion. The stamina and movement are still individuals and tracked and used separately. The subclasses of the Beastheart expresses how they cooperate with their companion. The current subclasses are Guardian, Prowler, Punisher, and Skirmisher. The companions come with their own custom-designed actions, triggers, and maneuvers. They're not sure how many companions will be included with the class, but it sounds like they're aiming for having like a solid selection. Everything from bears, wolves, and hawks to more fantastical creatures like basilisks and gelatinous cubes. On to the Codex. The Codex UI will go through some changes before release. Some of that work is already started. They've changed the presentation of abilities, for example. They've also implemented triggered actions and triggered resource generation. When the trigger for your triggered action happens in the game, the Codex will prompt you whether you want to use the triggered action, and it keeps track if you've spent your triggered action in this round. When in combat, each class has some triggers which generate their heroic resource. For example, the Elementalist gains 1 essence when someone takes elemental damage. The Codex recognizes when this happens and adds the heroic resource automatically. I've used the Codex multiple times in the last month, and it's coming along nicely. MCDM is also getting ready to use it in their internal playtests. The general manager of MCDM also confirmed that they're still intending on including access to the VTT with purchase of the core rules. They also want to sell the Codex on Steam, where you're effectively buying the core rules and getting access to the VTT as part of that purchase. They do reserve the right to reevaluate the pricing structure in the future, though. They don't know how much it will actually cost to run the Codex. This depends very much on how many people are actually using it. So, if it becomes unfeasible to run and maintain the Codex with the intended price structure, they're going to change it. With people posting that they're receiving their Djordice, people have started contacting MCDM asking whether it's possible to get a hold of more dice. According to the general manager, they're planning on doing another dice crowdfunder in August. They also hinted that there might be some extra useful items in there for running in person, but they don't have any precise details yet. Things are still being worked out, apparently. And now, here's a return of a section that hasn't showed up for a while. Small, rapid-fire news, not worthy of their own section. It's Mott's Miscellaneous.
Mott.
First, the current list of ancestries in the Ancestries book are fairies, Raiden Wights, goblins, shadow elves, and gnomes. The list is subject to change. Each ancestry will also have some extra info, like backgrounds, lore, saints, and maybe some magic items. 2. MCDM has hired someone to work on updated stronghold rules for Draw Steel. It's not a focus until after the core rules releases, though. And last, the starter set for Draw Steel has gotten the name the Start Here box. I recently released a new version of Stawl, the digital toolset for Draw Steel. In this update, I finally added Monster Malice, which will show up alongside monster stat blocks. This makes it much easier to run combats. And speaking of running combats, if you need to add some extra monsters in the heat of the battle, or the monsters bring out another battering ram, it's now possible to add monsters and terrain objects while running a combat encounter. Drop in some reinforcements when the players are rolling too well. And if you use Obsidian or Notion or some similar note-taking app when preparing your session, it's now super easy to copy monsters, their malice, and terrain objects into your prep notes. There is a new button on all monster, malice, and terrain object stat blocks, which copies the whole stat block as Markdown. The whole stat block nicely formatted straight into your notes. Check out Stawl at stawl.app. That is STAWL.app. At the beginning of the month, the Draw Steel community made a solid effort and got the vampire class across the funding line. And right before the crowdfunding campaign ended, it got boosted across the first stretch goal too. That means Triglav Games will also make a vampire ancestry. They plan to release the vampire class in November. And now, some highlights from the community. 007 Goldfish, fantastic name, has published the Flockle Ancestry, an ancestry of bird people. They claim to track their lineage back to the Sylvan Celestials, and the ancestry comes with fiction, in style of Draw Steel ancestries, and some on-point ancestry traits. Brad has published a monster faction called Molemen. These are basically what they sound like: subterranean creatures which attack the heroes from below. And through their malice features, they even acquire the assistance from an Arix. There's 7 monsters and malice features included. Ricky has published a Satyr Ancestry, the mythological creature from ancient Greece with goat's horns and legs and man's head and torso. The signature trait lets you choose how your presence affects others, such as the relaxation mood, which makes enemies more likely to stop fighting and negotiate instead. Greenfield Studios published a video going through how potencies work in Djordice. This is one of the game's mechanics that a lot of people find confusing when they start learning the game, and Brian makes sure to guide you through how it all works. And lastly, the Dice Society published an interview with James this month. It's a great listen where James talks about why they chose the 4 pillars: heroic, cinematic, tactical, and fantasy, the inspirations they had when designing Djordice, and how they want to introduce novel ideas while still keeping some things familiar. Links to everything can be found in the link section of the episode description. And speaking of James guest hosted on the Mastering Dungeons podcast in May. He and Teos Abadia cover TTRPG news, and they end up talking a bit about Djordice too. Link can be found in the link section. And that's it for May. While I'm already playing Djordice, there is something special about getting the finished PDFs with all the art and everything presented nicely, and now we're nearly there. Can't wait! If you want to be featured on Goblin Points or know of someone else who should be, leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify, or send me an email on tips@goblinpoints.com. Links to the MCDM Discord server, the subreddits for MCDM and Djordice, the YouTube channels of Matt and MCDM, the complete link section, and this very script is in the show notes. It's also on goblinpoints.com. Next episode is on the 20th. This time, I'm speaking with Hannah Rose. She's currently the co-founder and managing editor of the quarterly magazine Horizons, but she was also the managing editor of Arcadia for over 10 issues. Paying patrons have had the opportunity to submit questions for me to ask. Link to join the Patreon is in the show notes. See you next time. Snakkes.